What is up, guys? Welcome to my early review of The Gorge. This is the new film by Scott Derrickson, an Apple TV Plus exclusive that's going to be available on February 14th. So you'll be watching this review just a few hours before you're able to actually watch the movie. And this was a movie that really wasn't on my radar until I did the video where I was going to be looking at all of the mainline releases of 2025. Came across this new Scott Derrickson film and watched just a little bit of the trailer, enough to get intrigued, and it had a great premise. You got Miles Teller and you have Anya Taylor-Joy as these two snipers from different countries that are tasked with watching over this gorge on opposite sides, and a line of dialogue that is given to Miles Teller from his predecessor is that they are essentially watching over the gate to hell. So you have two of the best snipers in the world that are not supposed to talk to each other, not supposed to interact with anybody for their entire post of a year, and keep whatever is inside of the gorge down there and destroy anything that decides to try to crawl out of it. So it sounded like something that could be really cool, could be really interesting, and I really do enjoy Scott Derrickson as a filmmaker. His previous film, The Black Phone, was one of my favorites the year that it came out. Very excited about seeing The Black Phone 2 later on this year. And the only thing about this that gave me a little bit of hesitance was that it was going straight to a streaming service. But Apple TV tends to be a little bit more premium than some of the others. So had hopes for it. Now I've seen it, and let's talk about it. And right off of the bat, I will tell you I had a really good time with this movie, and one of the things that I enjoyed about it most is that it is a blend of so many different subgenres. Traditionally, you see movies that are trying to blend genres, picking like no more than two. You'll have horror comedies, a horror romance, an action comedy, an action romance, an action horror. This movie is a romance film, a sci-fi film, an action film, a horror film, a political thriller, all pretty much in equal amounts with the exception of romance that definitely takes the bigger slice of the pie. And that's a really ambitious idea because not only are you blending tones, but you're also trying to not shortchange any of the other pieces of the pie by giving more focus to one over the other. Like, you don't want to market yourself to horror fans and then they go see it and they find out that horror is like 10% of the movie. So he does a really good job. Scott does a really good job with this one at really tackling all these different subgenres and almost having it set up in a way where as the film progresses, you kind of progress through these subgenres. It starts very much as a romance film. The second act is very high-octane sci-fi action horror. And then the third act of the film starts to get more into the political thriller intrigue. So not only does it have a nice little progression through all the different tonal shifts of the movie, but it also has a nice little progression of keeping you on your toes, keeping you guessing about what exactly we're going to be getting into next. One of the biggest pieces of this movie that has to work is the chemistry between the two leads. It's a very small cast, and the overwhelming majority of the film you're just spending with Miles Teller and Anya Taylor-Joy. So if their chemistry with each other doesn't work, then the movie crumbles. And I think that they worked very well with each other. They're both very good actors. I've enjoyed pretty much everything I've seen out of both of them. And especially with them needing to have that romantic link that sets everything in motion and keeps you attached to these characters as they go through these wild situations in the second and the third act. I think they do a good job at bringing that. I think that they work well off of each other. Their personalities of their two characters are very different from each other. And so even their character dynamics match each other and kind of bounce off each other really well. So I enjoyed them as the two leads here. And if you're fans of them, you'll probably enjoy it as well. And even with how good their chemistry and the romance side between their characters of this film was, my personal favorite part of it was the sci-fi action side, which dominates the middle act of the film. And I thought it was really exciting. This is kind of a bigger budget film, which is a shame that we're not going to see it on a big screen. And without giving too many details of things that are revealed, there's a number of different things that they have to interact with in these action set pieces that I thought that was done pretty impressively. There's a lot of CGI at play here, so it is a very effects-driven film. But I did think that it was cool the way that they choreographed things to make it look seamless. It didn't look like they were interacting with tennis balls. I would be surprised if there was actually people in motion capture work doing this, because there's a lot of fast moving action, a lot of gunplay and explosions and hand-to-hand combat. It gets really high octane in the second act, and I thought that they pulled it off well. And something that all of the horror fans that watch this are going to enjoy is I thought they did a really cool thing with their different creature designs that they have here. Again, not going to get too much into specificity, but it's a very unique creature design. There's a variety of creature designs here. And I think that even though it's very effects driven, there's not a lot of practicality here. It's definitely all CGI type creatures. I thought that they looked good on screen. And each time they interacted with something new and something different, it brought a new little dynamic to not only the action, but like the wonder and the discovery of what exactly is in this gorge. So even that side of the film has a little bit of an intrigue to it, wondering what they're going to interact with, what they're going to come across next. But honestly, the thing that I enjoyed the most about this is that this is one of those films that, very strategically is being released on Valentine's Day. And much like some recent releases like Heart Eyes that I just recently reviewed, it's a movie that's really trying to appeal to different sides of the Valentine's Day crowd. Again, stereotypically, you tend to have one person in a relationship that's more into genre films like action and sci-fi and horror, and then you have one that's more into romance and drama and character pieces. Not always, but traditionally, stereotypically. And this is a film that really does appeal to a lot of different tastes. So I watched this movie with my wife, and she enjoyed it just as much as I did, which is kind of a rarity because we have very different tastes in films, very different attention spans. And for as much as I have to watch movies for work, she's not nearly as invested in most of the things that are on our television. So most of our movie watching experiences together involve us watching a movie together for the first 15 minutes, and then it's me watching the movie and her watching her phone. And she was totally engaged with this the entire time. I don't even think she pulled out her phone once. So any movie that can kind of bridge that gap and give me something that I can watch with my wife and we can both have a really good time with it for similar and different reasons, I like those types of movies. So I think this pulls that off very well as being something that appeals to both sides of the relationship and actually is a really good Valentine's Day movie. Moving on to the mixed, I will say that there's a certain bit of the movie that I think was a tad too predictable, not in an annoying sense, which is why it's here in the mixed, but I've seen enough movies that go for similar things plot-wise as this one that a number of the reveals and the twists that they were going for I saw coming a mile away. Luckily, the movie doesn't hinge itself on those being big shocks or being these big surprises. They're just, reveals that keep the plot going. So I still enjoyed it, but I would have liked to have been surprised a little bit more than what I was. There was a lot of writing on the wall with where certain things were heading that I just saw from a mile away. And the last thing here is that despite the fact that he has very good chemistry with Anya Taylor-Joy, I did find that Miles Teller's acting to be a little more wooden and a little more personality devoid than I'm used to from him. So I'm assuming that's the way that he was directed. That's the way that the character was written, because Anya Taylor-Joy is much more the fun personality of the two. She's the one that's kind of the rule breaker, the one who's got a lot more jovialness and playfulness to her, where he's more the stoic one. He's more the hardened soldier that, has nightmares and has all this trauma from the past. So it fits his character. But I've seen him give much more lively performances before. I've seen him give much more dynamic characters before. So there was just a certain element to him where I wish we could have gotten a little bit more out of him than we did. You really only get to see that stoic side of him with little glimmers of Anya Taylor-Joy and the romance, like bringing some humanity out of him, which again, probably the point. I just wanted more. And now moving on to the negatives. For all of the different subgenres that this movie tackles, I do think that the weakest one was the political thriller side. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that they positioned it to be kind of the last bit of the movie, the third act or so of the film. And after you get through a lot of the action and the sci-fi and the horror and the craziness of the middle hour or so of the film, it feels like it really pumps the brakes a lot for the final climax conclusion of the movie and just kind of focuses on intrigue and espionage and, politics. And it's not that it's done poorly. It's just that that's the least interesting thing going on in the movie. So if that's kind of your ending point, I wish that it ramped up a little bit more before the credits rolled, and it just seems like the movie really has a lot of its best moments before we get to the climax of the film. I also wasn't really all that interested or impressed with Sigourney Weaver's character. It's not her fault, you know, Sigourney Weaver's a goddess, we all know that, we all bow to her throne as Ellen Ripley, but she's played a number of characters like this, where she shows up as kind of like an extended cameo almost. You know, anytime you see Sigourney Weaver, she's such an icon that it just has that star power cameo kind of effect, even if she's a decent sized role in the movie. And so you have her here as kind of like a bookending character. She's the one that sets everything in motion, that hires Miles Teller, and she's the one that's in charge of this entire operation to watch the Gorge. And so she's mostly missing from the entire middle of the film. So you don't get enough to really know much about her. You don't really get enough given to her to have like that badass side of Sigourney Weaver. And things happen in the third act that honestly make her feel like kind of a dumbass. So just one of those weaker characters that really anybody could have played. Giving it to Sigourney Weaver just gives it a little bit more interesting flavor because she's got that iconic sense to her. But as a character, nothing to write home about. And the last thing that I will say is that much like with me wanting more personality out of Miles Teller, I wish I would have gotten more out of their characters as individuals. I think they work very well together, as I've already said, as far as their chemistry and their dynamic and being leads for the movie that you like. But for a movie that we're predominantly spending the vast majority of the runtime only being around these two characters, I can't really tell you much about them. I can tell you that they're both badass snipers. I can tell you that Anya Taylor-Joy is more playful and he's more stoic. I can tell you that they really have an affinity for each other. And that's about it. You know, we don't really get a whole lot of depth from their characters. And this is the type of movie that, again, can survive that very easily. It's a movie that's going for entertainment value more than character depth. But as somebody who always appreciates story and character more than anything else, it did leave me a little bit hungry for more. I wanted to have a little bit more of an understanding of why Miles Teller is the way that he is, why she's so playful despite being this contract killer. You know, for the entire first act of the film, you're focusing more on them kind of having this flirtation with each other more than we're really learning about them as individuals. And along those same lines, I think that there was opportunities to give them individual little character arcs or character growths that we could have seen them go through this journey with and end up as a different or a stronger, better person by the end of it. You know, there's opportunities to give some kind of a struggle, some kind of a personality flaw, you know, something in their past that's haunting them that this journey helps them get over. The main goal of the movie, obviously, is they're trying to survive. They're trying to end up together and alive on the other side of this wild situation. But as individual characters, I think you could have easily had something about each of them that this entire journey allows them to end up different at the end of the movie than they were at the front of the movie, outside of just being single at the beginning and being a couple by the end. But overall, I had a really good time with this one. Like I said, my wife enjoyed it as well. So if you are looking for something really cool and interesting and unique to watch with your significant other on Valentine's Day, you got a pretty good one here that's coming to Apple TV Plus on the 14th. I really enjoyed the action and the horror and the genre blending. Just wanted a little bit more out of the characters more than anything else. But overall, very solid entertainment. Had a really good time with it. Well, that's it for this one, guys. If you enjoyed that, please click over here for all of my 2025 new release reviews. I'm also going to put that 2025 little prediction tier list up here, which I talk about all the upcoming releases of 2025. So check those out, like, share, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss everything in the future. And as always, remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean you have to be.